Hey there, Aubrey. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
Really good. Feeling good today. Sun is shining. What are we talking about
Nice.
on the
Oh,
podcast?
I have a question to start us out here. Lindsay, what is the most polite culture that you've ever visited?
Well, a lot of that is in the eye of the beholder just because certain polite things could be happening, but I may not have been aware of them, right? So it's
Yeah.
very it's a complex question. But I would say when I lived in Japan, I was just really, really surprised by the level of politeness, of
Mm.
formality. The service was unbelievable to the point where when I came back after a year and a half in Japan, I got a flight, an American Airlines flight back from I think Vietnam because I'd gone to Vietnam, and I could not believe how rude the waitresses, the stewardesses were on the
Oh,
flight, and they were just
wow.
normal, but they were so to me, my mind had been switched. My frames and my expectations, they were flat out rude.
That's really interesting to think about, right? You're like, this is
Yes,
actually what I used to be
yes,
accustomed to. And
yes,
now it seems so impolite
yes.
because of what I'm now used to. Oh, that's really
Really
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. So this is the topic we're getting into, which Aubrey, I think is so important at the business level, at the connection level, travel. It's everywhere. Politeness, being
It's
rude, being
so
polite.
true.
Yeah.
And especially to think about how different this is across different cultures,
Mm.
right? This may be very different where you live or where you've immigrated to compared to the US, but there are certain phrases in English that are very rude, or especially can be rude depending on the intonation, but sometimes they're just rude all the time. And we recently got a question. Baruz wrote in asking about the phrase, "Who asked you?"
Mhm.
And part one of answering his question was Saturday, pack your English with idioms. So we answered part of his question and we promised to follow up, and that is today.
Ooh, I am excited. So today our listeners are going to get how many rude phrases to avoid? Four? Three? Three of them?
Let's see.
Looks
Yes,
like three. Yes.
three rude phrases in English that
Okay.
you might hear, you definitely want to avoid so that you don't give
Oh,
offense.
this is going to be a must get episode for our listeners, right? We really, and we're going to tell you exactly what the connotation, why you want to avoid it. And this is an important one today. So,
Yes,
shall we
absolutely.
start with the first one? Well, first, we want to remind our listeners, Aubrey, to hit the follow button because if you like this kind of topic, then we are for you. We focus on connection, not perfection, guys. So hit the follow button.
Yes, absolutely. If you missed this part one that we're talking about, you might be
Yes.
missing a lot of episodes. So be sure to hit follow so they drop right into your queue.
All right. Number one, Aubrey, what is it?
Yeah, number one is this question Baruz asked about who asked you? This is implying that someone gave an unwanted opinion or should not have spoken. And it's very rude. Like, there is no way that you could say this. I tried to think about and I was Googling, like, is there any way you could say this sarcastically and it would still be fun? Really, no. It's
I
always rude.
Yeah, I can't think of any. I can't think I mean, yeah, generally just steer clear, stay away from it. For example, you might hear someone saying it, right? For example, "I think you should break up with that guy."
Yeah, and
And
then
then
they would respond, "Who
"Who
asked
asked
you?"
you?" Right? Or, "This soup needs more salt." And the chef gets offended. "Well, who asked you?"
Who asked
Um,
you?
yeah.
Right. Anytime someone could say this, there are so many better options, first of all. It's just very rude. It really is
Mhm.
sending the message of, like, I don't care about your opinion. I don't want your opinion, and
Right.
nobody asked for it. And there's just nothing polite about those phrases. Like,
Yes.
anytime you would want to give someone that message, it's rude.
Yeah, just back away, back away.
Back away, just don't say anything. Or there are definitely more polite ways to say this, right? So you might hear this, you might hear it on TV, but recognize that it is always going to be taken in by the person that is said to as mean, as impolite,
Yes.
as offensive.
Yes. Do we wanna do this role play, Aubrey, just so our listeners can
Yeah.
recognize it
We
when they
have just
hear
a
it to
very
avoid it?
mini role play here. Well, we'll hear what this might sound like.
Yeah.
I don't think you should take that job.
"Well, who asked you?" Right, yeah, it's just blatantly rude, right?
And the intonation, like, that it wouldn't really make sense without that rude intonation because that's what you're saying, right? If you say, like, "Who asked you?" Then it's kind of
Right.
like,
And the
you're
but
you're "Are you literally asking me who asked me?" Like, I guess
yeah,
nobody, but it's just strange.
yeah, just steer clear of it, just stay away from it. So write that down as and cross it out. Write it down, guys, and cross it out because you're not gonna
Exactly.
use it.
Don't use it. We do not recommend this phrase.
All right, good. All right, second one we don't recommend is mind your business or really I say mind your own business.
I
Uh
hear both. I think I also say mind your own business more.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think people will, because you will hear these sometimes when people are trying to be funny or sarcastic, and so
Mhm.
they'll say it more playfully. They'll say like "mind your business" and drop
Okay.
own, right? You might hear
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But again, even if someone's trying to be playful and sarcastic, it's still going to come across as pretty rude.
Right. So someone might say, "Are you sure you should take that job?" And you might say, "Mind your own business."
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Or you're telling someone not to pry. You're
Yeah.
telling them like this is not your business. You should not be asking, you should not be involved, which
Right.
is just not a these are such like the typical ways to break a connection, right?
Yeah.
When you're telling someone, I don't want your opinion, I don't care what you think.
Yeah, honestly, these days I feel like our listeners are more likely to hear these on TV shows, like a Seinfeld or something,
Yeah,
right?
maybe or a reality show. Like if
Or a
someone's
reality show.
really angry and they don't care anymore about being polite and they're fine with being rude. And there's
Right.
also a certain level of immaturity sometimes. Like if
Yeah.
someone is saying something like this, they just don't have the maturity level to realize how rudely they sound.
Yeah, Aubrey, we might have to do a follow-up episode to give alternatives to these. What do we say instead? Right?
Yeah, right. Follow
Yeah.
follow for the follow-up. We'll share. What can you say instead? If you don't want someone to pry or you don't want someone's opinion, but you want to say that politely.
Yes, there are solutions, guys. So we'll come back to this topic in another episode.
Nice.
Quick role play.
Yes. So a little mini role play. You start us out.
All right, you really shouldn't text and drive.
Mind your own business.
That would be weird.
I can't even imagine. It's just so rude.
Oh,
But
I'm excited for go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. It's rude. It's rude. It's very short. It's unrealistic. There's no way to make it polite, right?
Exactly. That's the thing, right? And so many phrases were like, "Oh yeah, if you change your intonation, if you're trying to be sarcastic, it's okay." These phrases, that's not the case. It's just always impolite.
100%. I'm excited for this next one because this is a little more nuanced. And I think the first two, maybe our listeners maybe have heard that these are kind of maybe heard them on TV being barked at someone. But this
Right.
next one, there's another level of nuance. So,
Exactly. And this next one is one of those that could be more polite. You could say it, depending on the context. So it's figure it out. And this
mhm,
is said to tell someone to do something on their own without asking for help. But there is sort of another meaning that we use, which is just more like, you know, um, like if I say, "Oh, I need to figure this out. I need to figure it out." There's
yeah.
no rudeness there. It's just like I need to discover how to do something. But
Yeah.
when you say it to someone to end a conversation, then it can be very rude.
Well, this is making me question because I just said this yesterday in an email, not to our team, but to a partner we work with. Now I'm thinking, oh no, but not blatantly. I didn't say you need to figure it out, but I couched it in other words, right? But that was the point that I was trying to say. Like we've done our job. There's nothing else we can do here.
Oh, I
And
think
so
we need
now
to
I
do a
think I need to
case
go
study and you
rewrite
need
that
to
email.
bring that email onto the podcast and let's like because sometimes you do need to get that
Wow.
message across. Like you need a vendor, a client, someone does
Yes.
have to put in the work to figure something out on their own. How do we say
Yes.
that politely? Because sometimes that's the message that needs to be conveyed.
Interesting. Okay, I can't wait for the follow-up episode. This
Yeah.
is great. All right.
But
So
this
any other
specifically, the time when it's rude is when, like, if someone is saying they don't know what to do and the response you give is like, well, you need to figure it out with
yes.
zero empathy, with zero trying to, like, let's figure this out together or giving any
Yes.
kind of grace. That's what's rude. So let's do a mini role play
Right.
here.
Right. Okay. These instructions just don't make any sense.
I don't know. Figure it out.
Okay, yeah. So I think
That's
the po
rude.
the important point here is what do you put around it? What did you say in the email
Totally.
before? Right? So it's all about the context here. You can convey
Exactly.
the point, but you need to put a lot of empathy in the email or as you're visually here you just said, "Oh, figure it out."
Yeah, figure it out, right? There's no understanding of, I could say like, those do look really complicated. When I have some time, I'll have, there's so many things you could say to show empathy, to show
Yes.
understanding. And if all
Yes.
you say is figure it out and you leave, like that's how you end the conversation,
Yeah,
it's
not
extremely
good.
rude. Yeah.
Okay, good. This is very interesting. I'm glad we got to that one because it's a little less common. Maybe our listeners wouldn't know it, but here we go. Let's take a quick break, Aubrey, and we'll come right back. Okay, what do we need to know about sarcasm when it comes to these phrases?
Yeah. So often when people say this, they're trying to be sarcastic. Maybe they're trying to be playful. They do maybe want to get the message across that they think they don't want someone's opinion, for example, but sarcasm often still can be interpreted as rude. And so
Right.
that's, we kind of mentioned this, but this is why we don't recommend these phrases is even if you're trying to be sarcastic or use sarcastic intonation, these
Mhm.
phrases will still be interpreted as rude.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's show our listeners how this all comes together in a what not to do example,
Yep,
right? This is
exactly.
a what not to do role play. Okay.
Yes,
What
do not have this conversation. And you and I
Aubrey,
are making coffee in this role play.
nice. Aubrey, are you a dark roast coffee drinker? Are you an espresso drinker? What kind of coffee do you like, by the
I
way?
switch it up. We have an espresso, so sometimes I drink espresso, but
Mhm.
I like a latte, I guess, cafe au
Mhm.
lait, a lot of
Nice.
milk and sugar
Okay.
in my coffee, so
All right, got it. So we're getting the full context here. I'm
yeah,
drinking my
this
coffee
might be pretty
black.
accurate, this role play, because 'cause you're a black coffee drinker.
Yeah, I drink my coffee black pretty much. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. So, did you just put in 3 sugar packets?
Okay, mind your business.
Well, sugar is just not is just so bad for you.
Who asked you? I like my sugar with coffee and cream, thank you very much.
I mean, every now and then is okay, but every day, you gotta figure it out. Oh, wow.
Nice. And this
Yeah.
could be a
Judgy wudgy.
conversation you might hear among friends, right?
Yeah.
You would definitely this is a conversation you might have if you know someone really well. Never with like a
Yes.
coworker you don't know, that'd be so rude.
That
But
would be
like
so
close
rude. You'd have to
friends
be at
will
a
sometimes
yes.
criticize or pass judgment.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
is
Or
rude.
with your
Like if a
partner or
friend
something.
said this to
Mhm.
me, I would be like pushing back, like, okay,
Yeah, it's
rude.
judgy, right? Yeah, for sure.
And
Uh,
this might be where like I still wouldn't use these phrases because I still like I'm still responding in a pretty rude way, but
yeah.
this is where you might hear them like on TV or something because someone feels like they're being criticized or judged, and so maybe they would say that. Who asked you? Or mind your business.
Yeah, but you
Mind
still
your
kind
own
of
business.
I think you pulled back, and this is quite subtle, but our listeners are ready for it. I think you pulled back on the full rudeness because you said, "Okay, mind your
Yeah.
business." Like, you kind of, lightened things a bit,
It's
I think.
true. It's amazing how having, like, there are some simple words you could put before one of these that make it so much more playful. Like,
And the
"Okay,
intonation,
harsh.
right?
Mind your business."
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not just the word you chose, it's the way you said it. It's the delivery, the intonation too, right?
Yeah, and I think I could add before when I said, "Who asked you?" If I said
Mhm.
something like, "Dude, who asked you?" Right? Something
Yes.
that is adding more
Oh.
informality and making it even more playful.
Aubrey, that's another episode idea. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
right?
We could add that to our next month's episodes. Who knows, right? What else you can put here to, yeah, maybe you do want to use something that could be interpreted as rude, but you have a good relationship and you're going to say something, add a word that will lessen the rudeness a little
Yeah,
bit.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
Hit follow, guys. You never know. You never know what those both sound like amazing episodes.
We go into very specific things here on All Ears English. And then at the end, I said, I mean, every now and then is okay, but every day, you got to figure it out.
And
Wow.
yeah, it's interesting. Like it is still rude, but you could maybe see a friend saying this. Like you
Yeah.
see them having so much sugar and being like, "Okay, you got to figure it out. This is
Yeah.
unhealthy."
Yeah, for sure. It's like you're on your own. You got to solve that problem, right? You have a problem to solve, is what we're
Right.
saying. Yeah.
But like you said, we do need to do a follow up because this whole role play, I can think of so many things that would be less rude. That would be a more kind like if you really do feel like I'm eating too much sugar, there are kind ways you could say that.
Yep. That'll be in a follow up.
Yeah.
Aubrey, what's our takeaway for today?
Yeah. So, guys, some phrases in English are quite rude and you should avoid them, right? Today's
Yeah.
phrases, we just recommend you avoid them entirely so that you don't accidentally come across more rude than you mean to.
All right. Great topic today. Super important. Hopefully, our listeners, you'll learn something new about this topic of politeness and rudeness. It is incredibly important in business and life, right? And travel. When we travel, we want to make
Absolutely.
sure we're acting in a polite way, respectful way. Yeah.
So true. Awesome.
Huge.
Thanks, Lindsay. See
Okay. Good stuff. Take care, Aubrey. Talk to you soon. All right.
you next
Bye.
time. Bye.